When was the moment you realized your workplace was toxic? It wasn't always. I was fortunate to have a boss who took his role as a mentor very seriously. He wanted us to learn, improve, etc. And he was kind about it. He'd reward good work, correct you when you made a mistake, yell at you/scold you only when you really deserved it, and would admit when he made a mistake. He retired and left the company in the hands of a dude who was an absolute asshole. Completely the opposite. He wouldn't reward good work if you did something that was 99% perfect. He'd scream and berate you for the 1% that wasn't perfect. The last straw for me was the time I got a new file in. I spent weeks working it up and prepared a comprehensive letter explaining everything that we were doing, what we planned to do in the future, and offering a detailed analysis of the whole thing. Asshole yelled at me because his name should be on the signature line of that letter, because your only job is to make me look good. He yelled at me over a bill, misspelling my very simple name in a follow-up email. I have one of those names that has a common spelling and an accepted, but slightly less common spelling like Steven/Steven. He used the wrong one. The next most senior partner reported that he had put the objectionable items into the bill after I had prepared it. Asshole didn't care. I quit. A lot of other people quit. I heard a year later that literally everyone had quit. They hired new people, including the brother of the next most senior partner. They all quit in less than a year. He lost his biggest client. They had to give up the big suite of offices they built in 2012. Can't say I'm sad to hear any of that. Kind of reminds me of first generation, old country, crime families, ran by men of respect and honor. Then the Ira Holsons take it over, get sleazy and sloppy, then odd in a mountain of coke, or get Swiss cheesed in a shootout with the feds. I'm currently aware this is romanticized, respect and honor, something I find hard to understand about crime. I had a job where my girlfriend's mother was my boss. So I guess the moment I realized my workplace was toxic was when my girlfriend cheated on me, and then my girlfriend's mom hired the guy she cheated on me with. In hindsight, probably more than just the workplace was toxic. Plot twist, GF's mother was decking him, too. That explains the herpes. When our boss got into a screaming match with one of the managers, his daughter, in the middle of the office. I'd just started there 3 weeks ago, and it was absolutely mind-boggling to watch. I looked around at my coworkers and everyone was just looking away, doing their best to stay quiet and not look at either of them. Person at the desk next to mine saw my shocked face and whispered they do this a lot. Just ignore it. Apostrophe. Never go into a business with family. My guess. The father worked his butt off to build a business and hired his daughter to run it when he retires, and she's not very good at her job/or is lazy. Yep, you pretty much hit it on the nose. I learned from my coworkers that the father built the company from the ground up, and the family is very wealthy because of it. He ran it single-handedly with an iron fist for years. His 4 adult children, 2 sons, 2 daughters, each started working at the company when they were in their teens. They're all incredibly bad managers, disorganized, micromanaging, wasteful, and generally spend most of their time effing up and shopping with their dad's money. Hence the frequent screaming matches. Daughter I saw him first arguing with was the baby of the family. Most of the time she got away with everything, but occasionally her neglect of her duties led to a big consequence her dad couldn't ignore. Lost clients, missed major deadline, etc. So hence the screaming match. My wife works at a deli that mostly employs people that are either in high school or older retired people that are just bored and want something to do. The disparity of maturity creates a lot of workplace drama. I kid you not. There is some 18-year-old girl who works there with her mother, and if you cross this chick she will tell her mom. My wife is also starting to get chewed out for things that her manager forgot to do, like ordering food. Deli departments are always the worst. I work at a grocery store and their deli has gone through 3 managers in 9 months. I worked in one for 4 years. The turnover was incredible. Edit, turnover rate. When someone was called into the manager's office, then returned to box up their desk and leave. When I asked the manager if she was okay, I was told, "We don't talk about people after they leave. If someone quit or was fired, They were just never mentioned again. It was creepy AF. That's like some 1984 shit. It was the most depressing place I've ever worked. When it was my turn, I did keep in touch with a few people. The person who sat next to me said, "It's not that you were unpleasant to be around or anything, but I'd never seen you so happy as the day you got fired. I'd never seen you smile so big." Apostrophe. My parents sent a Halloween care package full of candy to my workplace, written to the care of Lil Sunflowers. Next time I was at work, I couldn't find the package. Later was told it was opened and all the candy had been eaten. They fired a new father the day before Christmas Eve because he missed a month of work due to his wife getting very sick after giving birth. He didn't try to get medical leave or anything because he was worried about his wife and taking care of his newborn. Second one was when I sat in on a leadership meeting. I worked at the time as almost a bridge between two sides of the company, and all the leaders did was gossip about their employees and talk about who they wished they could get rid of and who annoyed them. One of them was a new leader and they were friends with these people a month ago. The meeting was about how to improve morale on the floor, and the end result was a competition for a 25 gift card to the company store that is nothing but company apparel that no one wants anyway. It didn't work. My own dad and employer hassled me for being in the hospital with my son for like 10 days. Totally forgot about this. When they wanted to give me an attendance point because a terrorist blew up the AT&T building in Nashville and I had no internet to work my Christmas Day shift. I hope 2021 will bring you a better job. When the line "you're only as good as your last mistake" popped into my head, and I realized that explained everything about how I was treated in that toxic office. It didn't matter how many things I did well or effectively. One mistake and that's all anyone held on to. Also, I was hazed my first year there, and when I tried to ask about addressing some of the office culture, the director shrugged and said that's just the name of College Way. Yes, this was a very prestigious higher ed institution. We reached a point where we regularly had to wait to cash our paychecks. We basically were told we had to get orders completed and paid for in order for the account to have enough money to pay us. During this time, the boss went on a vacation, which was just great for morale. My manager had to take a day off, effectively putting me in charge for the day. I texted my manager, "What should I do if the ICE shows up? Lol." 2 hours later an ICE agent did stop in looking for my boss. I found a new job not long after. My husband had a similar issue at a previous job. The situation really hit home one day when the coffee pot was repoed. Apparently it belonged to a vendor that wasn't getting paid. The visual of a coffee pot repo is something out of a sitcom. My realization came late. I got laid off from a job with good pay and benefits, but I was dealing with long hours, high stress, a department with low morale, and a hands-off manager who seemed to care more about the company than me. Even though the place was toxic, I was sad to leave. I'd been there 4 years, and the job was in a field I know a lot about. A few days after the layoff, I attended an event not far from the building I worked in. When I saw the building, the first thought that popped into my head was, I'm glad I don't have to go back there tomorrow. Apostrophe. Something somewhere, deep in my brain or my soul, had just told me that the job I'd just been fired from wasn't for me. Dealing with this right now. Haven't been paid off, but same situation otherwise. I feel like putting in my 2 weeks, but I don't have anything else lined out yet. Suggestions/advice welcome. I'd say update your resume and ask others in your field about jobs they know about. Maybe apply for jobs you'd like to do and aim for interviews. Or if you're not ready for that, get some training. I'd feel strange suggesting that you just leave, both because you don't have anything lined up and because I didn't have the gumption to do that. I'm in a better work situation now. The firing was the kick out the door that I needed and that I should have done myself earlier. When I realized there was no policy in place for dealing with aggressive clients, while regularly taking aggressive clients, like, are we just supposed to let them hit each other? Call the cops on a pair of idiots? What? Ain't none of us trained for physical restraints. So legally we can't really do much. I'm glad I don't work there anymore. I wasn't looking after kids but grown adults, which TBH was much scarier. Had a guy phone stalk me for weeks after I told him his issue was with the manufacturer and there was nothing that I, a lowly retail employee, could do. My coworkers were horrible people. So they actually aided him. He'd ring and hand the phone to me, not telling or lying about who it was until it was too late. If I wasn't there, they'd tell him when I was on or what store I was working at that day. He'd threaten to come into the shop constantly and my bosses did nothing. Then I got an actual physical stalker, not aggressive, just creepy, and the same damn thing happened again. I wish I had more of a spine then. But I'd already been so worn down by that job and bullying in previous jobs by the time it happened. I had something similar happen when I worked retail and some poor kid bought a PlayStation that didn't work. The kid brought it back to the store and I had to tell them that he had to go through Sony because Sony wouldn't deal with us. I didn't feel good about it, but at the same time, we had several experiences where we took back broken merchandise only for the major console makers to tell us tough. I think they even put a slip in the box telling customers not to bring the console back to the store and call them if something goes wrong now. Kid's dad yelled at me for an hour while I'm on the phone with Sony trying to work something out. But like I said, Sony didn't want to deal with me. Then my pothead manager wandered into the store high as a kite. Just an awful experience. Worked at a brew house. Well, it was more of a U-brew. We made small batches of beer out of malt extract and high fructose corn syrup that customers bottled themselves. The business was sold to a dude who paid way too much, and pretty soon he started cutting corners. Cleaning became unmanageable as he spent entire days in his office watching YouTube videos, occasionally coming out of his cubby hole to yell at customers or accuse them of ripping him off. I stopped drinking the product we made when he refused to deal with broken filtration systems that were possibly leaching harmful bacteria into the beer. At 5% alcohol, beer doesn't have enough booze in it to kill bad microorganisms. After 7 years he still didn't know how to make beer, test the beer, clean any of the equipment or balance the company books. Paychecks were bounced every few months. He started encouraging cash deals with customers and pocketed all the money, which is illegal for all businesses, but super duper illegal for a company selling alcohol that is virtually untaxed compared to beer bought in a liquor store. Soon the business was broke. He stopped cleaning, which was the only thing he could do. People complained that the beer was giving them stomach cramps and diarrhea. Eventually the molds appeared. Black mold, yellow mold, green mold, all the molds in the color of the rainbow. And with that, the customers started to stop buying our product. I quit after a third bounce check. The store tanked, and a year later he went bankrupt. Through the grapevine, I have been told that he still blames me for destroying his businesses. I know your question was about emotionally toxic workplaces and not stomach turning mold, but the manager was also the biggest loudmouth jerk I ever met. Only time I ever cried at work. So in terms of toxicity, it was the best or worst of both worlds. That's fucking disgusting. Makes me want to vomit just reading about unclean brew systems and mold. I had a job as an industrial engineer that I really liked for 6 years. The guy who made it toxic wasn't even my boss. He was the operations manager of the building where I was domiciled, but I didn't report to him. When he started, my boss told him I was there to help him out with anything he needed. Well, a couple weeks into him working there, what he needed was for me to cover a Sunday shift that started at 6 AM. The reason there was a need for a Sunday shift was because he attempted to handle almost twice the amount of volume that I told him was the maximum for a Saturday, and it went as poorly as expected, and called at midnight to let me know when I didn't pick up because I was at my own engagement party. He went ahead and told his boss and my boss that I had agreed to come in at 6 the next morning. It was one of the dumbest things I ever did when I actually cancelled all the plans I had with my family members who were in town and showed up. If I hadn't, there would have been about 50 employees waiting in the parking lot because nobody else had the keys, and people would have been pissed at me, but oh well. At the time, my bosses were putting me on software development projects and working on transitioning me into a software dev role. but within 6 months. I was supervising the operation from 9 AM to 9 PM MF and 6 PM to 6 AM Saturday nights, and I had been pulled from all my software projects. I quit to take a software engineering boot camp and now I'm a software engineer. There is a Russian proverb that poorly translates to the one who plows is used to plow. Basically, if you work hard, people will work you to the bone. I used to try to be super accommodating at my first job and take shit assignments because I was young/unmarried and wanted to be a team player. My boss was really good, but others tended to take advantage. A more seasoned employee told me she never gave out her personal number because she didn't want them to have that kind of access. Told me if the job wanted to reach her off hours, they could get her a work phone. Good advice that was wasted on me. I started to become smarter when I got a call on Valentine's Day with my then girlfriend, now wife. A guy wanted me to cover his night shift because he had a cold. I told him I was on vacation/weekend and had drank some wine so cold drive back. He offered to do the night shift so long as I did his next night shift. It basically came down to yeah, I'm on vacation so I'm just not gonna do that. What kinda deal is that? I'll do my shift if you do my next shift. Try telling a cashier I'll pay for my groceries this time if you pay for my groceries the next time. Probably when people started to complain about the quality of the offshore work, and the business's solution was to fire some people locally to save cost and still persist with the offshoring. I'm desperate to leave. When your sole reason for offshoring is cheap labor, you fucked up your company and reputation. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe for more videos.